I'm Ryan Chamberlain, co-director on Kelly's Escape.
And I'm Chad Chamberlain, co-director and camera operator on Kelly's Escape.
The idea behind this short was to see if we could do a oneer with a series of difficult transitions and Chad making them seem as effortless and seamless as possible.
So I've been a Steadicam operator for about 8 years now, and you start to fall in love with the tool because of how it can follow and react to somebody. And the gimbals have always fallen short. The Trinity is the first thing I've used that bridges the gap between the two. It has both the mechanical advantages of using gimbals and their stabilization while also being able to react like a Steadicam because your pan axis is locked. And you can also switch in and out of modes. So I can go from what they call Trinity mode to follow mode, which is basically Steadicam. When I'm following Kelly down the stairs, I'm switching modes so that I can handle tilting and following her down the stairs instead of using the joystick, but then I can switch right out of it so that as I'm going out that door, I'm going back into low mode and getting in a more desirable position to step onto the crane. When it comes to the Trinity, most people think about these big, elaborate high to low moves, and where I think it really shines is the subtleties and the simplicities. You know, we start in low mode on that rickshaw, and as I'm stepping off, we're coming up into high mode. And it's not something you think about, but it helps those transitions, and it helps put the camera in a more desirable position instead of being stuck in just the boom range of the arm.
Another thing you don't think about with those transitions is, like with the rickshaw, we've got 3 of us pushing him at full speed, keeping pace with Kelly, and then have just moments to hide the rickshaw. Because with each of these transitions, it was important for us to show behind the camera so you see as a viewer that there's nothing back there. And so the timing on this was absolutely, it had to be perfect because there's just seconds between these turnarounds. And upstairs where or not us, but Dan Lacey is running behind Chad while he's on a Segway and then has just seconds to hide the Segway as well. And the production design done by Whitney Spangler on this was perfect. She walked through the whole set with us every time we walked it, just to make sure that the way that all these shots were taking place, that there was things that were done naturally. So you never...
Yeah, like the elevator and the barrels. The elevator hides the rickshaw and the barrels hides the Segway and Dan.
And all of this is done in a way to where as a viewer you don't pay attention to it and you don't notice it. Hopefully, yeah. Another thing happening behind the camera is we have Vlad, who came out from Name FX to do these Zerk hits, which are the dust hits you see happening on the wall. And Vlad is running behind Chad and then having to hide and then come back out and make these shots incredibly accurate so we can keep everything practical and in camera. Also running behind Chad was our first AD, Matt Sewell, who was calling out cues, who was making sure everybody was in position, who was making sure everything was done safely, and just made the whole set run really, really smoothly.
We just had an endless amount of industry professionals helping us in every aspect, including gear locations and expertise, including our key grip Sean Brown and Iron Grip team that built the crane and did all the rigging support, and our audio team that had to rebuild the audio from the ground up. That's all recorded in studio. We had to ADR everything. Not a single sound was recorded on site. And the dirt bike riders, which were incredible, and some very legit stunt teams, and Simon Potter, who did all the stunt coordinating. And even further behind the scenes, we had Louis Leroy, who was our DP and first AC, and John Williams pulling Iris, working off a wireless system where we had to switch between 2 wireless units of monitors to keep the signal as we transitioned across the building.
Technical difficulties are something we've kind of become accustomed to over the years. But this being a self-funded project and the scale of it just provided a new set of challenges that almost got production shut down several times before we ever stepped foot on set. But when we got there, we thought everything was okay, and then one of the biggest challenges arose out of nowhere, in which during the last run-through of rehearsal, Kelly got in a freak motorcycle accident in which she was thrown from the bike. She was treated on site by Garen and our medical staff. But Chad and myself were still ready to pull the plug, and just a testament to her and her care for her craft and just the type of chick she is overall, she talked us into keeping the shoot going and redesigned the opening shot into what it is in the short, in which it's a 325-foot running tracking shot of her after this accident had just happened.
And we end the shot stepping onto the helicopter, which is kind of a Steadicam no-no, but it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always dreamed about doing. Don't encourage anyone else to do it. But with the Trinity, it finally made it possible. I've put gyros on it before, and that helps you with the wind. But having the roll and tilt stabilized and still being able to control that with the joystick made it work. The only other thing that made it work is the gyros that are switched on at the beginning of the shot, because I wanted to still show that you could whip pan, so have some faster whips at the bottom of the stairs and then up before we go into the hole. And the gyros are just starting to get up to speed. And they get up to speed while we're in the helicopter, and that's what made that possible.